uh, it seems that the country is in such turmoil that they need somebody to bring a healing hand to it and make it possible to bring people together. And that's why I'm running. That's why I'm running as an independent, because I can work with everyone, and I don't attack people based on what party they belong to. And I think that we have a moment in time here where, if we get it right, we can set America back on a path that our founders envisioned. We really had a government of the people, and right now, there's questions about that. So what I want to do is, thank you. What I want to do is to let's have a chat about the things that you're concerned about. I'm just so happy to be here at Hebrews. This is the he of Hebrews.
Yes, I saw your picture.
And to talk about, as we look to the election tomorrow, the things that you're hoping will happen, not necessarily who you're voting for, but the things that you're hoping will happen as the country begins again in this every 2 and 4 years of decision making on the part of the American people. So what are you hoping for?
Well, it's so hard to learn what is truth today so that you can make a decision. I mean, everybody's got a polar opposite view, and you can't just average that out to come up with the truth. There's really no forum that I can find that is allowing you to really find out what the facts are and the information so that you can decide. And so it's very frustrating, because when you're trying to understand issues and you're trying to understand what the approach is that a candidate is taking, it's really hard to get to a balanced view. And so, I mean, I'm hoping that we get a level of, and I don't know that we're going to, but that we get a level of people who can work together and compromise towards the benefit of people versus the polar opposites. But I mean, I'm hoping we start a transition into that, but I'm not sure that we're going to with the current climate.
Well, you've raised a question about how do we figure out what's true? Because again, bombarded with all kinds of messages. And I guess this is where experience comes in. You have to kind of trust your gut about what you're hearing, because everyone has a different version of so-called facts. And today, with all the money that comes into campaigns, people just don't know. So you got to go back to kind of like a gut check and see, well, yeah, this is what I think is really going on. Because, Washington isn't always what it appears to be, as we know. I mean, how about you? What do you think?
Well, I just go back to COVID, and thinking about watching the news and hearing wear masks. Next day, oh, don't wear masks. And then I just started saying, okay, they're doing this for a certain reason. They want all the N95s going to the hospitals. Okay. So then I just started not trusting. I have a non-trusting nature to begin with. So I just started questioning everything and discerning who I listen to, because if I'm listening to mainstream media, I'm getting all this false information. So I don't listen to them.
So how does that make you feel in terms of your, the decisions that you're making for yourself and your family?
I am pretty determined on what I'm going to do, who I'm going to vote for. Pretty outspoken, as my son will tell you. And I have a lot of hope for tomorrow, but one whole race cannot, tomorrow, one whole election isn't going to change the world immediately. We've gone so far downhill, the way the country is. It's frightening, it's sad, it's demoralizing to think of where we are. And so I want better for my son, for my grandchildren.
What are the things that have been most concerning to you about where America is at this moment?
I'd say the economy. It's always the economy, stupid. The economy, it's always the economy. But the border, the whole transgender thing, the whole what is a woman, all of that, and knowing what truth is. My truth is different than your truth. That's not true. There's truth, and there's my opinion, my perception. Things like that. So all of that is, I think, the biggest thing. And there's no God. There's no God anymore. And I see that with people. There's so much materialism and no God.
So the lack of a spiritual
Oh, yeah,
content
absolutely.
that
That is the core of it all,
I
in my opinion.
yeah, well, let me tell you, I believe in that, and let me tell you why. When our country was founded, the founders said, okay, we're going to separate church and state. We got that. But they never intended to separate the government from spiritual values, which involve, honesty, integrity, doing the right thing when no one's looking, being honest, being fair, not killing anyone. That's, those are part of the commandments. They're spiritual values. And when the government says, well, separate church and state, too many of people mean separate from spiritual values. And so, what we've tried to do in this campaign is to show policies that are grounded on those spiritual values. Stop the endless war. Thou shalt not kill. Fundamental. Uh, Stop spying on Americans. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. And there's and also when the state becomes so powerful that it sets itself up as God, right? I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange gods before me. And so those commandments were always a guide for us. But then the government says, well, we'll separate church and state, but fine, except for one thing. We don't want a state religion, of course. But what about aligning our national experience with spiritual values? And that's what I stand for. I mean, I don't care what people believe, but our leaders, and this is something that Jefferson was aware of, Washington was aware of, all the founders were aware of, that you have to have a connection to some divine being. I mean, even in the Declaration, it's talking about nature's God. Okay, nature's God, and so I look at that as instructions for us in the future, and we've gotten away from that. So what you're talking about, when a country gets away from those kind of values that anchor us as to who we are,
It is an anchor.
right? We get into trouble.
We do.
So I mean, what do you think about where we are right now in the country?
I feel we needed security. Our borders need to be secure. We had them secure. I feel that's something we need, and that's same as our churches. We need them secure. We need our businesses secure. Uh, Drugs, alcohol, that stuff. Bring that in. How it's coming in? It's coming in bad for our community. I'm looking at for my children, my grandchildren. Don't have any, but we have to look forward. And so I feel our border was secure better than is now.
Well, let me ask you this. As you've seen these reports come in, how does it make you feel about the fact that the border is wide open and I think something like 11 million people have crossed illegally?
Yes, I mean, I believe that. I had a friend that was over in PA, and when when Trump got shot, and he said his daughter they were sitting right in behind, and he said his daughter still has nightmares,
Yeah.
and he says everything from bad people that don't have love. I mean, there should have no. I said our community should have came in our 13-year-old community children could have done a better security system than what they did over in PA, and no training.
Yeah, one of the things that I found remarkable about the assassination attempt on President Trump is how, here we are in an election, and it seems like the memory of that just went down a rabbit hole. My God, an assassination attempt was made on a former president. And whether we agree with a person or not, there is each person who is president or has been president represents something of America. Maybe not all of America, but something of America. And when that happened, it was shocking. And that it could be forgotten so quickly is also shocking. And so the violence that's going on in this country, what I have found in talking about to people, there's a real concern about crime. And there was a Congressman, Anthony Gonzalez, who wrote a letter to the Immigration and Customs and got a reply back, wow, just a couple of weeks ago, where they showed how many crimes have been committed by people who just came across the border without being stopped, by people who came here illegally. And you add to that the law enforcement difficulties we already have in America. And the police are absolutely overwhelmed. And we don't have enough security. We don't have enough security in our schools. We don't have enough security in our business districts. And what we're finding out is that, and this is where I come in as a candidate. I say, well, why are we spending, let's say, since 9/11, we've spent $8 trillion on wars that we didn't have to fight. And then we took that money and put all that on the credit card. So the $36 trillion deficit, $8 trillion of it is connected to wars we didn't have to fight. What I want to do is stop spending money on these wars. And with the resources we have, we're going to have a strong military. We need to start shifting some of the resources so we can hire more police for our communities, so we can make sure the border is secure, so we can make sure that fire and EMS are equipped, particularly in these small towns. This is a district that we have our urban areas in Cuyahoga County and around Mentor and Worcester, but the rest of it is very rural. I've been to a lot of rural fire stations, and they're just hanging by a thread. Their apparatus needs improvement, or they need more people to man it. These are the kind of practical considerations. Well, what's wrong with taking care of things here at home first, instead of spending money all around the world, just pouring America's tax dollars into other countries for war and whatnot? So, this is, to me, we're wasting our future. You talk about children, potential grandchildren. So we have a younger man here. We're for those of you who just joined it, we're at Hebrew's Coffee Shop in Shreve, Ohio. It's one of the wonderful coffee shops in this area. It's in some ways, we started our campaign here in Shreve gathering signatures when it was very, very cold. And we circled back to Shreve here at the end of the campaign, just to check in with a few people from the community. And I want to thank Hebrews for helping us arrange this little coffee tete-a-tete tonight. This young man here, tell us your concerns about where we are for the future of the country.
I think the big thing that both my wife and I experienced most immediately is just financial difficulties, both in the economy more broadly, but also on the most local and individual level, is predatory companies trying to get everyone in debt. And both my wife and I went to college, and now I'm in the trades, which has helped me get rid of a lot of my debt. But it just, there's a lot of practices around debt and high interest rates that really hurt myself, my wife, but also a lot of other young people. That 18 to 30 is like the time you should really start to try to build the beginning of your life, and financially that's the age that is most predated on, which makes it very difficult to start life. And
So your biggest concerns are economic, and may I ask, are you saving up for a home? Are you renting? What's your status?
so I'm renting, but also saving for a home. Um, but it's very difficult to save, like with trying to keep up with payments to pay my debt. It's my duty to pay my debts. At the same time, it's very difficult to.
So you're paying off a student debt
Yes.
and you're paying rent, and it's pretty tough to save for a home.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I find in going around and talking to people about the cost of housing, all of us get in the mail those offers. If you own a home, people say, you want to sell your home. And I don't know, any of us, this is everywhere. Everybody who owns a home gets something in the mail. It says, sell your home now. And you get instant cash. Well, what's happening is that hedge funds, which are these very wealthy funds that grow through investments, they've been buying up homes left and right. And these hedge funds work out of Wall Street. So they're buying up all these homes, and these companies are getting bigger and bigger, and they're owning a large share of a market. In some cases, they have 25% ownership in a market. So just like anything else, if you start to corner the market on any commodity, what happens to the price? It goes up. So what's happening is that rent and mortgages will are now going up. And young people in particular, if you get in a squeeze where your wages are pretty fixed for a while, even though both of you might be working, and you're paying off student debt, you did what we were told to, go to college, get ahead. You're paying off your student debt, and your rent starts to go up. You can't save money for a house. It's impossible, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So what happens?
A lot of the money that goes to just trying to pay off debts and pay the rent, and really not much. It's hard to pay more towards those debts.
So you have what's your degree in, if I may ask?
Political science and history.
Okay, you have a degree in political science and history. What are your long-term ambitions, like say for you and your wife? What are you looking to do, let's say, in the next 5-10 years?
So I just started my own business, roofing and restoration, and I want to continue with that, learning traditional trades, but also using my skills from college, speaking and oratory and writing skills to apply to business, but also just general life skills. But we hope to have like a piece of land where we can grow our own food, and something that's very important to us is subsidiarity, trying to do things on, small scale possible, like community, family, and that includes like growing food so we don't have to spend so much money on food.
This is a very important discussion because your experience, how you've in a way found yourself trapped in a situation, but you got out of that trap by saying, okay, I'm going to develop a skill that will be the basis for providing a service to people and to start to build a business. And that shows a lot of initiative. And, the entrepreneurial dimension of a country is very important. And when young people are showing that, even if it looks like it's not too good, you're still going to make an effort to build something for yourself and your family. The underlying issues, though, still must be addressed by the government. And that is, what about these monopolies in housing that affects mortgages and rentals? So what I intend to do, if I'm given a chance to go back to Congress, is to initiate antitrust action against these companies, because no one should have the right to corner the market on housing anywhere. It's really a situation where it's a danger to our country. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. You're never going to be able to keep up. And what they do, they just keep driving up the price and driving up the price of whatever the market can bear. And and then what happens, just follow this. Remember some of us remember the subprime meltdown in 2007, 2008.
Just thinking about it.
These hedge funds, they bundle their holdings into securities and then sell fractions of them. We're headed towards another financial collapse if we let this continue. So we have to put the stop on this market dynamic, because it's going to put the banks in trouble that are holding the mortgages. It's going to put our nation in trouble, because the last time we bailed out the banks, we bailed out Wall Street. What did the American people get? Nothing. I actually led the effort against the bailout in 2008, 2009, because I was saying, look, you're talking about millions of people losing their homes and businesses, and we're gonna make the banks whole, and they're not giving the people any money at all. They're just taking money for themselves and their investors. So, I see my role as someone who defends the economic interests of people by challenging these big corporate interests that are just all about making money. And it's like a casino. Heads they win, tails we lose. We're losing either way, unless you have representatives who are standing up for the people and saying, hey, this is baloney. We're not going along with your controlling a market. We're not going along with you spending money recklessly and then coming back to us and say, oh, well, we're bust. Now give us some of the money. I mean, that's wrong. It's immoral. And yet that's what happened. And so I want to go back and wake the town and tell the people we can't have this happen again. So, tell me about, in Shreve here, we're at 104 South Market Street in Shreve. What do you hear from people about the things that they're concerned about, what they, because you're talking to people all the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, this discussion is about common sense. We're not arguing about things like you need a secure border. That really isn't an argument point. If you want to be a sovereign country, you need a secure border.
Right.
You need fair elections, and a lot of these things are just common sense, and that's what people are longing for, and they're asking, they're talking about. And as we sit here, this is what makes you have faith in the country, is that you got people sitting around a table talking common sense, and that's the thing that really leaves people worried, is when we are talking about things that are, I guess, obvious, that become a debate. And not that we can't have things that are a debate, but there's a lot of things that are pretty self-evident that we're losing in this time, and spending tons of money on nationally, and wasting time. I mean, when you look at the border crisis, just as an example, we can't get facts, coming back to that, but then people can't even agree if you should have a secure border or not. And it's like, I've got friends all over the world who have learned that lesson now. I've got friends in Sweden who used to argue with me about it, but then guess what? When they got overwhelmed with refugees, they had to put in a system, and they had to become a sovereign nation and have some security around it. And so that is what it seems like people are frustrated about, is that just that piece of common sense where you can sit around a table and basic logic will lead you, maybe not to the same solution, but at least agreeing on what the issues are.
The same conclusion, like you have to seal the border. And how does one have a nation without a border? No one's ever explained that to me. How can you have a country unless you have borders?
Right.
Because the fact that we've kept those borders open has enabled people to come over, and we don't even know who's coming over, how to keep track of them. But we know one thing: it costs money when we have to take care of people who come in, and we have spent hundreds of billions of dollars that should be taking care of our people, and the money is spent locally. It's spent in county and state budgets, spent in the federal budget.
Dennis, it's not racism. That's not being racist in any way, is wanting to have borders and to have a systematic, I mean, my gosh, many of us, our families came over in the last 100 years in a system that allowed you in, gave you a chance, but it was a system that you came in a way that they gave you a chance. You had to do it. You had to do the work on your own, but you came in legally. And that's not meant to be something that is racist by saying not everybody can just walk across our border. And we have friends who came in, tried to come in. Our kids are Colombian, so they were able to be naturalized and became citizens. Our lawyer and her husband from Colombia wanted to come here, and they were working through the process, but they came in legally and they went back. And it can be hard, but all those people who've worked hard to get in here, and then others are just coming across the border. That's why it's not, it's not like everybody who is an immigrant is sitting there saying, yeah, have open borders. They're actually not saying that. They're saying have secure borders, but have a process for people to come in. So it just keeps coming back to that common sense. And like you said, how can you have a country without a secure border?
Well, what I have found in going around the 7th District is that this issue of the border is something that really grates on people. It's like, why is this happening? Why has the border been so porous? Why have we not secured the border? And why haven't we returned to a regular process of immigration, which we had for generations? Very few of us have connection to Native ancestry. People who were there for hundreds of years. So most of us in America, except for the Native peoples and some of the slaves who came in, most of us, our families have been here, as you said, 100, 120 years or so. People went through a process. And that process was what made America, strong. It's part of the beauty of America. It's open to people from everywhere, but getting in line instead of just saying, well, you're going to jump the line. I mean, even if you're imagine when you're standing in a long line at a store or in a movie, in a movie theater or a restaurant or whatever, and you're waiting in line for a while or at the bank, and all of a sudden somebody just runs 30, 40, 50 people ahead of you. How do you feel? It's like, hey, wait a minute, get in line, go back, take your place. Imagine when millions get ahead of you. And that's why the people are trying to do it right. It's not fair to them. And so I want to insist, when I get back to Congress, I will insist on closing that border, stopping anybody else from coming in, returning to regular immigration, and stopping the benefits of people who have come here illegally, particularly when they have a criminal background, because otherwise we're just subsidizing criminal activity.
And they're not checking backgrounds either, are they?
They do it after the fact. And so both of you have brought up this idea of common sense. I know you've talked about both, one of the things that come up from this discussion is common sense. It makes no sense at all to keep a border open, none whatsoever. And this is why Americans who have paid their taxes, done everything they could for this country, in some cases served the country, in some cases put their lives on the line for the country, only to find out that somebody can come across the border and try to get benefits that people who have been here, have paid their tax and worked for, they might have trouble getting, So that's why, as I get around, this is this is an issue that really causes people to go crazy about why don't we do something? And it is the job of the federal government. So, so we have endless wars. We have the government spying on people, which is crazy. I was in Congress right after 9/11, and I remember when they brought the Patriot Act in. Now, Washington likes to give a title for every bill that makes it sound very pro-American. So they called it the Patriot Act. Now, who would not want to identify being a patriot? But we had maybe 10, 12 hours of hearings on this bill, and then took a break for dinner, and we came back. And I found out that the bill that we had hearing on, they shoved aside and put a new one in. But they put it in, it's like, imagine a slice of ham between two pieces of bread. That was the bill. But then, when you came back, they had a new bill, 2 slices of bread, but all bologna inside of it, like this, okay? So, right, so what was the bologna? The Patriot Act gave the government the power to spy on Americans, to get bank records, health records, financial records of any kind, to find out everything about anything, which to me was unconstitutional, because the Fourth Amendment clearly says that we're to be protected from unusual search and seizures, and if there's an issue, get a warrant. So I voted against that Patriot Act, because when I saw that new bill come in, I went and did a quick speed reading, and I looked at it and said, we didn't talk about this. What is this about? So they tricked the Congress into voting for it. And then I led consistent efforts to try to repeal portions of it. And recently, one of the offspring of that Patriot Act, called the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, this year, they reauthorized it. And a Congressman Biggs tried to get an amendment that says the government can't spy on American people. Now, do you think that would be easy to pass? It failed in a tie vote, which is mind-blowing. So now the government can spy on Americans. And unfortunately, the gentleman that I'm contesting with in this election, Mr. Miller, he voted for the government to spy on American people. And so I look at that and I think, wait a minute. One of the most fundamental rights that we have is to be left alone.
So we live here.
Right. To keep government out of our business.
Yes.
And this Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is all about letting government get into our business. And, if there's a reason, if somebody commits a crime, get a warrant. And that's what the Biggs Amendment said. But it failed in a tie vote. So, to me, stopping the endless war, stopping the spying, stopping the extraordinary amount of money that's adding to the deficit, cut that deficit, and start to take care of things here at home. One of those things is capping credit card interest rates. Oh my God, I'm hearing from people about how they're locked in to these rates that are variable now. So as soon as the companies want to adjust the prime rate, the rates of the credit card go up, and there are people who are finding themselves in hock to the credit card companies. How many of us know about that? Anybody here know about that? Well, I've talked to people who've told me that they're paying 24% and even over 30% on credit cards. And just like the people who want to buy your house, the hedge funds who want to buy your house, want you to sign on a dotted line. Over the last couple of years, we've all been flooded with buy this, get this credit card, sign up for that credit card, easy money, fast money, spend. And then, there's a point at which you got to pay the piper and you find out, uh-oh, the interest rates, wait a minute. I took this and they said the interest rates would be low, but then the fine print said they can adjust it a year later. And before you know it, many people right now are having a heck of a time paying off credit card debt. and the interest keeps growing. So what do you do about that? What I want to do is to go back to Congress and cap the credit card interest rates, to say you can only charge so much. Now, years ago, people went to jail for loan sharking.
Mhm.
And you know, the mafia would give loans out to people, and if you didn't pay the interest, and the interest might have been 20%, that was unheard of. But today, the credit card companies are charging more for interest than the mafia charged. What does that mean? So, you know,
Mhm.
I mean, do you hear this from people? I mean, are people?
I have not heard about that. I see that, and I thought that there were controls and regulations, but it seems like all those are gone regarding interest rates and some of the practices you see in the credit cards. If you don't have a little bit of savvy about it, and they'll give you extended terms on something, or you'll pay a fee instead of an interest rate, but it adds up to more than you would have. And so I had thought there were controls on it, but it looks like it's a free for all at this point.
Well, it is a free for all, and people who have taken these credit card offers that have come in the mail a year or so ago are finding out that you know, it's not free money. They operate like a bank. A number of them are connected to banks, and they're capitalizing on interest payments. And the number of defaults on credit cards keeps going up. And the other barometer that we have to watch is the defaults on housing that start to go up, because that was happening before the subprime mortgage meltdown. What I'm finding is you know, you ever drive in a road down a highway and then all of a sudden you found out the road caved in, like it washes out underneath. You know, it happens everywhere. My concern is that we're looking at another false security, and what's underneath it is not solid at all, or it's starting to wash away. The investments that Americans used to have, people used to rely on a pension, savings, and Social Security, seniors in particular. Today, pensions have been reduced severely for people, if they have them at all, because a lot of these big companies just stole the workers' money. Savings have been depleted for a number of reasons, including, you know, inflation and high interest rates and cost of living generally. So people are left, seniors in particular, left with Social Security, and it's just not enough for people to make it. So I'm concerned that we aren't taking care of our own people. We aren't giving. We took people's tax dollars, but we're not creating a society that reflects the kind of wealth that we've had. We're still the richest country in the world, but how's the money being spread around? It's not being given. It's not being spread to our people, and in a way, we're giving it to these big companies that are just taking a chunk. Do you find that this current economic climate is a little bit tougher in your own experience than it has been in the last couple of years?
Yeah. Yes. Like taxes, everything's been going up. From 99, tax money, ours property tax was like 3,200 for our farm, 138 acre farm when we moved there. And now it's up to $8,000
$8,000 a year
a year.
from
1999, 3,200, and now it's 8,000. And we have the same amount of acres, but there's hundreds of more houses in the community. So where's this money going to? Somewhere. It's all gone.
so what kind of adjustments do you have to make? Well, you have a 168 acre farm, you said?
138.
130 acres. What kind of adjustments do you have to make then as these property taxes keep going up?
We ended up selling all the farm equipment because we had stray voltage in our community. But the electric company ended up putting totally new lines we were milking at a time. and that cleared me out. I could have went and put a lawsuit in it, but I found out it's a co-op, and that's the community. So I had attorneys, everything lined up, and wanted to give me money. They said, you can go buy another farm. Well, I found out it's a co-op. Well, that's community. So I didn't want to have the community go on their knees because had plans to do like $35 million.
Ooh.
It's a lawsuit. That's money.
Well, you know what I'm finding, in farming areas and in the urban areas alike, rising property taxes are really hitting people. And this goes also to if the value is being driven by other concerns like people manipulating the market, that adds even greater intensity to the property tax issues. Now think of this, I'm hearing from older people who are telling me they're wondering how in the world, with their value of their homes going up and the property taxes going up, how are they going to pay them if they're on fixed income? Will people who've worked a lifetime, it's the other end of your experience, if people have worked a lifetime just to have a little something, have a little home, security, and then all of a sudden the taxes go up and they're going to be deprived of that opportunity. And even with Ohio's homestead exemption, people are having trouble making ends meet with paying the taxes. So again, to me, that's a state question, and I think Ohioans could see something on the version of a proposition that hit California years ago that affected property taxes, so that the state or the counties can only raise the taxes a fraction every year instead of hitting people with these big numbers.
And that's like I was getting at 99, I was getting oil and gas checks for $3,200, $3,300, $3,400, and that was paying. But now by 04, 05, 06, 07, 08, those finally lowered down, and now we're only down to about $700, $800. Same amount setting out, but we're getting less.
Well, that's in your story. In your story is the story of many people who look for investment opportunities and find the returns starting to dwindle. And if you come to rely on them, it starts to affect your other holdings, your investments, your house, your farm. See, I want to focus on those economic issues that are affecting people's lives. Now, in the time that we have here, and for those that just joined us, we're at Hebrews on South Market Street in Shreve, Ohio, a community that has this beautiful coffee house. It's been about 6 years, right?
Right.
And it's a place where people gather and to talk about what's going on in the world, but also to worship. There's a beautiful back room there that people gather for spiritual purposes. But we're here in Shreve on the evening of the 2024 election. And Shreve is in the 7th Congressional District, Wayne County. The district includes Cuyahoga County, Medina, Wayne, and a little bit of Holmes. And we started our petition drive here in Shreve. And I wanted to come back on the eve of the election because our government needs to focus on those smaller communities as well that have helped to make America strong, that have been the backbone of what real America represents, and that is people with a dedication to community, to church, to small businesses, to service to the country, and those are values that America grew from. This is a place that when we started our experience as a nation, it grew from places like this. So that's why I wanted to return here. What I'd like to do in the time that we have left, to go back to this question of what do you want to see the government, no matter who wins on Tuesday, including myself, if I become your congressman, what do you want to see the government do? What's the thing, you may have already mentioned it, what's the one or two things you want to see addressed?
Well, I believe number one for me personally is the immigration, the border security. And then number two is just the economic piece, which deals with spending, government spending, and being able to have an understanding of what drives inflation. And people just don't seem to understand that government handouts lead to that if you don't manage it properly. So those would be what I would say are the key things.
Okay, thank you.
I think closing the border and also stop sending our tax dollars to other countries. We need the money. We have people in need here. Help them in other ways.
Help the community here have the money, use the money here locally, and also safety, security, support the truths. A lot of these Congress guys they go in Congress, they say, "Oh, we do this and we do that," but then they come around and they flip the boat and they don't stand by the truths.
I'd say controls on like interest rates and debts and getting things, lowering taxes, but putting more financial power in to the people and families and communities.
Thank you very much. We've had a great discussion here at Hebrew's Coffee Shop in Shreve on the evening before the 2024 election. And what keeps coming up in this discussion, and it has come up in discussions that I've had throughout the campaign, is we have to do something about the border. We have to control immigration. And I've said, seal that border, okay. We have to take care of our own people here first. That keeps coming up, and it's come up here too. We have to have security in our country and protect our own people. And that's part of this discussion. We have to look at the economic issues. So once again, returning to Shreve, and the Hebrews Coffee Shop has given us some insight into what not just this group of fellow coffee drinkers desires for the country, but I think it points out what the aspirations that all Americans have as we look to the election, which the results will be coming in about 24 hours. I want to thank you for giving us a chance to visit Shreve and to talk about what we might do to make our country better. I'm Dennis Kucinich, your candidate for Congress in Ohio 7th District, and I look forward to serving with you. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to Hebrews Coffee for 6.5 great years of service to this community. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thanks for coming down.
Great, thanks. This is true.